Jane Velez Mitchell for Unchained TV are here with Elmira Tanner of Direct Action Everywhere. They have an extraordinary new piece of legislation in California that would ban.
Hey y'all, this is Katie from Sacramento, also known as Sacktown Vegan. I am here at the state capitol of Sacramento, and there are some activists gathered here, so let's go see what they have to say.
In fact, the San Joaquin Valley has some of the worst air pollution in the United States. And sadly, this pollution primarily affects marginalized communities of color, causing respiratory illness and other health symptoms, not to mention the diminished quality of life and home values from having to live next to mounds of manure from hundreds of thousands of cattle. And while that alone would be reason enough to stop the expansion of animal agriculture, there is more. 75% of emerging human diseases come from animals. Early last month, the USDA reported outbreaks of highly pathogenic avian influenza on a turkey farm in Indiana, and since then, outbreaks have been identified in flocks across the United States. Infected birds are killed en masse in often brutal ways that not only cause significant welfare concerns for the birds, but moral distress for the people involved in this devastating process. And nothing is stopping this disease from coming to California.
So, Elmira, tell us about this legislation and how people who are upset with the devastation that factory farms for animals are causing in terms of environmental degradation, suffering to the animals, problems with human health, since processed meat, for example, is officially cancer-causing according to the World Health Organization. What is this bill and how can they help?
Yeah, so this bill is AB 2764, introduced by Assemblymember Nazarian and co-authored by Assemblymember Lee. And what it does is it is the first step towards phasing out the destructive animal agriculture industry in California, and hopefully that would spread to the rest of the country and the rest of the world. And so what it does is it prevents any new facilities from being built or any existing facilities from expanding. And right now, what constitutes a facility includes any sort of commercial animal farm or slaughterhouse that makes over $100,000 in revenue. So this is really comprehensive. It is targeting almost every type of farm. We might see that revenue limit change in negotiations as we try to get this actually passed through the legislature, but essentially it is putting a halt on the growth of this industry, because we know that eventually we would like to see no factory farms at all, no animal farms, no slaughterhouses. And the first step towards doing that is actually just making sure we don't keep building new ones. And I think a lot of people are really surprised to find out that new farms and new slaughterhouses are being built in this day and age in California, despite all of the things we know about it, despite knowing that it exacerbates the climate crisis, it brews disease, it exploits workers, and of course, obviously abuses animals. Not only are they being built, California as a government is actually funding this expansion by giving these places sometimes millions of dollars to expand. And actually, anecdotally, like right now, there's a protest happening outside the one of the governor's offices of business development, protesting the use of these funds going to these expansions. So just as an example, we recently released an investigation into a slaughterhouse in Southern California, close to San Diego. This slaughterhouse got $6 million from the government of California to reopen and expand, and is now like killing cows for Costco, violating the Humane Slaughter Act, just like a horrible place. And so we want no more of these types of places opening up in California, and that is what this bill would do. And so if people are wondering like how they can support, the first step would be going to nomorefactoryfarms.com, making sure you sign that petition, and that will make sure that you get on our mailing list and find out about future calls to action. And if you're someone who's really motivated, like you want to be on the ground, coming to rallies, maybe doing outreach to constituents and all of that, and working really hard to get this bill passed, you can actually join a chat that we have where you can find out all of the alerts that are happening. We use a messenger app called Signal. If you download that and then go to dxe.io/volunteer, you can join that chat and find out about everything that you can do, like retweeting or calls to action to help this bill get passed, because it's going to be really difficult to actually get this passed through the legislature. Getting it introduced was a huge first step, but we definitely have our work cut out for us.
We are speaking with Elmira Tanner of Direct Action Everywhere about a new piece of legislation that they are rallying for that would ban new animal factory farms in California. California, of course, would be the 5th largest economy in the world if it were its own country. What happens in California spreads to the rest of the country and the rest of the world. So this is extremely crucial. I just went on your website, nomorefactoryfarms.com, and I sent a letter in less than 20 seconds. This is how easy it is for people to get involved. All they have to do is go to nomorefactoryfarms.com. You click, you scroll down, it says sign a letter. I clicked it. It auto-filled. I sent it. It might have taken me 10 seconds. What else can people do to get involved? Because I think this is one of the most brilliant pieces of legislation. And if this passed, it could literally mean the difference between us surviving as a species and going extinct. We're barreling toward extinction. It's not just animal activists. Sir David Attenborough, who is no animal activist, has a great documentary called Breaking Boundaries. We have broken through several of the approximately 8 boundaries. Once we cross all 8 boundaries, we're done. There's no turning back. There's no mitigating or reversing climate change. One of them is habitat destruction. Another is wildlife extinction. And why is habitat being destroyed and wildlife driven into extinction? For cattle grazing. So right there is an example. Currently in California, at the Point Reyes National Seashore, there is a huge battle because the Thule elk, who thousands of tourists come to visit, are being driven to starvation and dying of thirst to accommodate dairy farms. So this is not any hypothetical. This is a daily battle happening in California day in and day out. So what can people do if they want to get involved?
Yeah, so if you've already signed the petition and signed up on nomorefactoryfarms.com, the main usefulness is if you live in California, so that you can call your legislator. And so if you just Google who is my legislator in California and you put in your address, it will tell you who your assembly member is and who your senator is. Right now, we are focusing on the assembly because that is where the bill is going to be voted on first. And you can call your assembly member and say, hey, have you seen this recent investigation that just happened? For example, it is an investigation, like I mentioned, into a slaughterhouse that recently reopened in California. Ask them to watch it and ask them to give you their thoughts on it. And I mean, you most likely won't be talking to the assembly member directly, but you could ask their aide. And when you're talking to the aide or talking to whoever you talk to at their office, let them know there's a bill right now that was being introduced that would prevent any new places like this from opening up. We want you to vote yes on this, because maybe they're not going to be the first people that see the bill, but eventually, if the bill passes through the various committees it has to go to, then every single person in the assembly is going to have to vote on this. So it's not too early to call your assembly member, let them know that this bill is being introduced, and ask them to watch the short film about the recent investigation that really solidifies why a bill like this is needed. And for folks who haven't seen it yet, the documentary about this investigation can be seen at DXE, so dxe.io/imperial dust. It is a 12-minute film. It is not full of graphic content. There's, I know some people just don't want to see that stuff. And it gives you a warning before there's any sort of graphic imagery. So that would be the next thing to do.
Yeah, we're focused today on this incredible piece of legislation. Now, the way it's been promoted is no new factory farms. would it also ban any new slaughterhouses?
Yes, yeah. So it would ban any new slaughterhouses again over a current revenue threshold. So maybe not the tiniest ones, but most ones, and certainly any mega slaughterhouses. The bill text is, we've kind of shortened it into a good slogan, which is no more factory farms, but does apply to slaughterhouses as well.
So, what is the reaction on Capitol Hill? First of all, your demonstration was very large for the middle of the week coming out of a pandemic. And I know that those kinds of demonstrations have a tremendous impact on legislatures because they really want to see what's happening with the people. And it was a very large event that you held on the steps of the Sacramento Capitol. Uh, was there mainstream media coverage? Did you get any response from the legislators who are very influenced by these kinds of demonstrations? Recently, there was a very onerous, and the Intercept described it as a very extreme bill being proposed in Utah legislature that would have essentially wiped out virtually all protections for all animals anywhere in the state. It was draconian. And it looked like it was barreling toward approval. It was being fast tracked. And with one demonstration organized outside the Utah Capitol building, it failed. So these demonstrations are hugely effective because they really catch the eyeballs of the legislators. So what was the reaction to your demonstration that you held in Sacramento, Amira?
Yeah, the rally yesterday was amazing. We had 130, maybe even more people come, various organizations. It was a coalition event, Direct Action Everywhere, Compassionate Bay, the climate movement with Extinction Rebellion and Sunrise. We had PETA there. We had Our Honor there, which is a group of veterinarians speaking out against animal abuse. So it was a great event. And we had the Sacramento Bee cover the rally before it even happened, which is great because that is like a paper that a lot of legislators read. CBS was out there, Telemundo was out there. I haven't actually seen that coverage, but they were there filming. So I think we definitely got some mainstream media to come. And we have been, I'm not the person directly in contact with the legislators, but we have been meeting with them, especially the people on the Ag Committee, who we believe will be the first committee to vote on this bill. And some of our coalition partners are actually currently meeting with some offices right now. They stayed behind in Sacramento to have those meetings. So I think the more attention that we can draw to this bill, the better. My sense is that the people who don't like this bill would love for nobody to pay attention to it so it could just quietly die. But we are going to make sure that it does not quietly die. That's why we had so many people come out yesterday, all in very bright matching t-shirts and everything, so that nobody would be able to kind of ignore that this issue is being presented to the legislature.
It's so easy to sign. Debbie Bouillon.
Oh, thank you.
Sign. And it literally takes a second. No more factoryfarms.com. You just click, sign the letter, boom. Now, let me ask you about the powerful agricultural interests. Look, California is considered one of the most progressive states in the nation. It purportedly cares about the environment. It's all up into discussing how we want nature-based solutions and we want to do what's best for the environment. And yet the people don't realize, I believe this is the largest dairy state in the nation, having eclipsed Wisconsin. There are millions of cows here. So it's far more agricultural than it first may appear. Those forces are very powerful. What is your strategy to deal with that and to mobilize people who purport to care about the environment? Because there are so many legislators who beat their chest saying, I'm an environmentalist. Well, this is an environmental bill more than anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Like building coalitions between the environmental movement, public health, workers' rights, immigrant rights. This is all like super relevant to this bill because having no more factory farms, no more slaughterhouses would benefit everybody. And I think someone even said yesterday at the rally, like even the people who are going to vote against this bill would benefit them because we want a livable planet. We don't want another pandemic. We don't want people in our communities who are suffering from PTSD because they have to do these horrible jobs all the time. So I think that this is a bill that everybody should get behind, because it's literally one of the ways that we're going to be able to save our planet. So yeah, very important. But that being said, the powerful interests are strong. I don't think, our political system is not exactly free from legalized corruption. Essentially, there's nothing illegal going on when the Farm Bureau or the Cattlemen's Association gives tens of thousands of dollars to some of these people, totally by the book. But it does not seem fair or just that that's something that can happen. And it is something that's happening. We've seen, the members of the Agriculture Committee, many of them are getting $10, $20, $30, $40,000 from these associations, the Farm Bureau, Cattlemen's, foster farms, all of these places that we've investigated. And so getting them to support this bill is going to be very difficult, but I hope that we are able to put kind of a positive pressure on them and say, hey, if you want a world for your children to live in, or, if you want a safe place for all of us in California, if you don't want any more wildfires, if we want to end this drought, you need to vote yes. And then also putting a little bit of negative pressure on the people we think are going to be voting no, to kind of shame them in non-violently, to say, like, do you want to build more factory farms? Like, that's, either you want no more or you want more of them. And so hopefully people feel a little bit of embarrassment if they're kind of on the build more factory farms team.
There are two big issues. First of all, we invite anybody that you've mentioned, any association, any corporation on, to get their side of the story, their response. We'd love to dialogue with you. Secondly, the issue of pandemics has come up. You talked about it during your rally. And we know that the New York Times published a report saying essentially that scientists have narrowed their conclusion and say it's extremely, extremely likely that it started at a wet slaughter market, the Wuhan wet market, which is a retail slaughter market where there were domestic animals and wild animals mixed in. And that was overshadowed by all the other news we have right now about the Ukraine. But that was a very big, big, big piece of news, because while people might have said, we'll never know what caused it or bring up lab theories, the scientists are now saying, and it was reported in the front page of the New York Times, that no, in all likelihood, beyond a reasonable doubt, it was the Wuhan market. So we also hear reports about avian flu breaking out. You brought this up at your rally as a reason why we should pass this bill to prevent future pandemics.
Yeah, I think it's really easy for people to point fingers at, like, oh, maybe some, other places are brewing this disease. And the reality is, like, we're brewing these diseases in the US in factory farms, like right now, as we've seen with avian flu that's spreading across the country. We actually have investigated facilities in California and done our own testing and found the presence of coronaviruses in these facilities. Like, it's not the specific coronavirus that's affecting us right now, but there's nothing to say that they might not mutate and be able to jump to humans next. Again, the avian flu that's passing around in the US right now currently isn't a huge danger to humans, but a couple mutations down the line, who knows? And so, time and time again, people are warning us, like, the next pandemic is coming, the next pandemic is coming. 34%, or sorry, 3 out of 4, 75% of them are coming, or of zoonotic diseases or of infectious diseases are zoonotic, meaning they come from other animals. And so I think people have seen the writing on the wall for this. It's not a surprise that the pandemic we have now comes from our unnatural interaction with other animals. And I think there'll just be another one if we don't do something to stop this industry.
Now, one last issue. Here, living in California, I know water is a huge problem. And I always see these reporters doing stories about almonds and almond farms, but the dairy cows, and it's completely overlooked by the media. Of course, the advertiser-based media look at their commercials, meat, dairy, pharmaceuticals for the most part. So they don't point to animal agriculture, but animal agriculture is a huge, huge source of water. And it's particularly an issue in California, which suffers chronically from drought. Are you going to use that argument?
Yeah, absolutely. Water is very salient for people in California, not just the drought, but also like the lack of clean drinking water that a lot of people have, and the wildfires that is happening, which of course are all related. But, we like wildfire season feels like it's almost all the time now in California. And that's because the land is so dry. And also we just don't even have the water, like we're using so much water fighting these fires. So something that's super relevant. Very interestingly, like ALDF is actually suing Foster Farms, which, again, like Jane said, I would love to hear your side of the story, for using so much water in their slaughterhouse. And so I think sometimes we also just think about how much water the farms are using, and they are using a lot. But these slaughterhouses alone are using millions of gallons of water, partly to kill the animals because of the water baths that they use, and they get filthy and disgusting, but also just to like clean the horrible grime and blood and guts that are all over these facilities. And so they have slaughterhouses that are using millions and millions of gallons of water in places where the people that live there do not have access to clean drinking water. Sometimes the workers themselves don't even have access to clean drinking water. And so that's just a very horribly skewed priority order, and like where our water should be going to kill animals versus to like give people clean drinking water. So absolutely, water is a huge issue with this, and it's something that we're going to be talking about when it comes to trying to convince legislators to vote yes on this bill.
I think this is absolutely crucial. Living in California, fearing fires, fearing a drought, having people say to me, "Why are you watering your plants?" I'm like, "Because I'm a vegan. Okay, I'm not using all that water every day." And it's not just me saying it, it's National Geographic says you could save hundreds of gallons of water a day. Each person who doesn't eat animals because they're not involved in a system that uses so much water. Thank you so much, Elmira Tanner. Again, there is this bill. It's a new bill being proposed in the state of California, in the California legislature. It's 2764. 2764. You can go very easily to this website, nomorefactoryfarms.com, and send a letter. And there's also going to be call-ins. Sure, call into your legislator if you know the legislator. But I know that you're going to have campaigns where it's going to be very easy for people to call. And I think that also sends a very important message. So thank you so much, Elmira Tanner of Direct Action Everywhere. Please support this bill. No more factory farms in California. No more new concentrated animal feeding operations. No more new slaughterhouses. Let's transition to plant-based. And you can watch more of this content on Unchained TV, unchainedtv.com, and our new streaming network, Unchained TV. Thanks so much.